do this.
Okay. Okay, morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear us. We are ready to go. Sorry for the delay this morning, but we're ready to go. Morning, Mr. James. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir.
Are you living the dream?
I'm blessed and highly favored. Cannot complain at all. Wouldn't even start. Absolutely. How about yourself, sir?
I am living the dream.
Good.
You know, getting better after the epilepsy thing.
Hey, man.
Drugs are starting to work a little bit, but there you go.
Just a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just a little bit. But they're actually getting better. And seen the doctor yesterday, and he says I'm still as nuts as I was before.
Hey, well, good. As long as you're not making any regression.
Hey, I'm drinking my coffee this morning, my Vietnamese coffee.
Yes.
Are you ready? You drink anything today?
I actually had my coffee already. I had to drop my car off today to the dealership and take a lift over here to the office. So I had coffee there. They have good coffee, and then some big, huge, gargantuan machine that they, up in there, and it just kind of makes the coffee. So,
what type of coffee was it?
It was called a baritone coffee with a espresso shot. So
Really?
it was not bad.
Any of our people watching out there, if you can recommend a coffee, please put it in the comments.
Please do.
Because I am a little bit of a coffee freak, and the other day I tried an organic coffee.
Really?
Yeah, it was actually pretty good.
Did you get it at at one of the local stores, or
no? Actually, it is a business associate that's bought some properties from us, and he has a coffee company.
Okay.
And I quite got to like him a bit more because he's just bought himself a new car, sort of similar to you. You just bought a new car for your wife.
Yes.
He bought himself a Lamborghini.
Oh, I can't afford that. That's a little outside my pay grade.
So I'm beginning to wonder whether we should all be selling coffee out there and buying Lamborghinis.
Hey man, coffee, it's a lucrative business.
But it's an organic coffee company, and he's going to drop me off some samples. So I'm quite looking forward to it.
Good deal.
So we'll see. But if anybody can recommend any coffees at all, please leave in the description.
Absolutely.
Well,
cool, man. So we're here at the table.
Here we go.
What are we talking about today?
Well, the first things we're going to talk about is me and James have different opinions. And
surprise.
From Europe, what I sort of said I wanted to bring up was I want to talk about 3 items which I know people are going to have opinion on, and I would love to get your opinion as well. So put your opinions in the chat. I hope we're going to bring the chat up at some time, Jack. But basically what we have is I want to talk about 3 things, which is capitalism versus socialism versus communism.
Okay.
And I would like to talk about what you think the pluses and the minuses of them all, to be perfectly honest. Because as I'm, from Europe and a little bit more, I think to the middle, I see benefits in all of them, to be perfectly honest. But at the same time, I see a lot of people struggling, in America, and it sort of hurts me a little bit, to be perfectly honest. And I would like to do, a little bit more. So, for people, and sometimes I feel people don't get a fair shake. But at the same time, I feel some sort of people bring it on themselves. And I think it's difficult to get that balance, if you want to. And I was talking to my wife about this, who was originally from Vietnam. She was saying that, in 1974, when they had the Vietnam War, she came over to America because she was avoiding communism. When, a lot of people were killed back in the 70s, but the people that stayed there and sort of managed to get through there or whatever, they've sort of released a lot of the rules in communism, just like they have in China. And a lot of them people now, to be perfectly honest, they're having a pretty good life. I mean, they've they've eased up communism. I definitely don't want to live in a communist society myself, but they've sort of they haven't lifted, but they've sort of released a lot of their, the negative parts of communism. And now what they're doing is coming over, and they are making themselves they've made themselves a lot of money, just like China. Apparently there's more millionaires and billionaires in China now at the moment what there's ever been. I really don't know what the tax situation is.
Yeah, me neither. Honest. Well, I mean, in that case, if you're looking at communism, so first of all, let's just kind of give a base overview of what these things, just, third grade level. Communism is basically a fair and equitable share of everything amongst everybody. Period. No classes, really. It's just to kind of make
I disagree. You see, I think communism's more that way to the left than that. To be
unpack that. What do you mean that way to the left?
Let's sort of. That's part of the problem, I think. To be perfectly honest, I am going to Google, or if Jack could do that, is go to Google and put in socialism and see what socialism is. To me, with communism, I look on communism as having a few people controlling a lot of people, supposedly, so everything's fair and equal and everything else. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think that it's an equal, socialism, a political and economic theory of socialism organisation which advocates that the means of production, distribution, exchange should be owned and regulated by the community as a whole. From a practical point of view, I don't think that's the case with communism. In China, China's the main. They're the fastest growing, although they have not grown as much recently. But what's his name? Mao, or whatever his name, Z or whatever it is. I mean, he basically controls everything. He says what goes on. Mm-hmm. So to me, that isn't everybody being part of the decision making.
Well, it's not that they're a part of the decision making.
Z Ping, there you go. I've never worked his name out. How can you call him Z when it begins with an X? It's X. I don't know.
I think it's she is how they say it.
And I'm not meaning to any Chinese people out there. I don't mean to sound insulting,
but the deal with the socialism, the difference from as I understand it, is where you're participating in it as a socialist. Everyone is participating in getting a little bit of it. The communist is just it's a one pot. Everybody's equal. There's no upper class, no lower class, no middle class. Share in the wealth in all production, in all manufacturing, agriculture, all of that stuff. And that's basically takes away the government from having any control, per se, over it. So the government kind of withers away, so to speak. And so the socialism spin on that.
So hold on. So do you think that in China that's the case?
Well, if you're talking
do you think the people of China have that control?
Well, when you look at the Communist Party in China, if you're a part of that party, because I don't think everyone is a part of it, because you see people.
I don't either.
You see people here over in the Bel Air area talking about or protesting about CCP and not being a part of it or whatever. So I know everyone is not of one mind over there. But if you participate in that.
And the reason why I don't think that is in China is because they suppress religion. They suppress. Right. There's different things they suppress. There's different in one region. They suppressed one group of people. I think they're Muslim. They suppress them and they send them to re-education schools, which being a prison.
Well, that's just more a control thing. Because
right.
Ultimately, the idea.
And that's what I'm saying. If they're part of the people, I don't think in communism, I think there's good parts of communism.
Really?
And I think there's bad parts of
Okay.
communism.
Let's hear
But I don't. Well, for example, if communism, I don't think. Obviously, capitalism and communism are different. I don't want to live in a communism. But when you look at that country, how it's developed, as in the infrastructure, right? Do you understand? As in some of them buildings. I mean, some of the buildings in China, I've never been there, in Beijing, look fantastic. I
Right.
wouldn't like to live in the position when everybody gets a social score now and you've got cameras looking at you and everything else. You know, I don't want to live in a position if they're suppressing my religion. But at the same time, if you look at how their infrastructure developed, then is that a benefit of communism?
Well,
I don't want to live in that. Don't think I want to be part of that. I don't. But all I'm doing is looking at them and analysing. All right. I think socialism, personally, is in between capitalism and communism. I think communism is really far left, extreme, and then I think capitalism is the other side. You know, on the right.
Well, communism, just in its essence, and this is purely just an example, because I thought about it. So you go to Catholic Mass, and everyone's going up, and the priest has the communion to give you your deal, and you take the cup and you get a sip. Everybody gets the same. Get the bread, you get the cup, you take the sip from the same cup. Wipes it off. He gives it to you.
And you catch the flu. Okay.
Yeah, or whatever else you get, right? But it's the same exact cup, because you're coming for communion, and that's what your need is. You're only given what you need. So there's no millionaires or billionaires. There's none of that, because you're given enough to exist. That's it. You're not going to go hungry. You're not going to go homeless or outside. This is it. You're not gonna you don't get a mansion. You don't get a Lamborghini. You just get what your basic needs are, and the ultimate control. Those beautiful buildings and everything that you're talking of, those are controlled by the government, the state. In the communist example, though, the people don't own those buildings. They don't thrive on those businesses or anything. They get their needs met. So if you need healthcare, you need education, we're going to give you that. We're going to give you all that kind of squared away. But as far as you thriving and becoming this multi-million billionaire, not happening.
Well,
To the common folk.
I know. I agree with that. Believe you me, I agree with it. But why is there more millionaires coming out of China?
If you're in government, you come out of wherever you want to come out of.
Which I agree
That's
with.
more the minority than
Right.
the majority.
But that's the point I'm saying. But communism, they don't vote. They don't have the option to.
It doesn't matter. It's under the control of the state anyway.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think communism is ideal society.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you on
Right,
that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. But I think there's got to be some benefits when you look at the infrastructure. Yeah, with the system we've got on the other side, which is, I think, what we're on at the moment, which is capitalism. They can't even get infrastructure. And I spoke to you the other week, and what did you say about buildings? Well, buildings aren't built that way because, they're built basically, what you said, to fall down in 3 or 4 years, whatever. Mm-hmm. They're not built to last, correct?
Not like they used to be.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
In England, you'll get a building, or in Europe, you get a building that's built in the 14th century, 15th century.
Right.
You get bridges that have been there for 14th century, 15th. It's nuts. I don't think a building should be built on a temporary basis. When you see things, a lot's left to private companies within the capitalism system to do. The healthcare system, the business.
Of course.
But yet...
Especially over here.
It is. Oh, tell me about it. I was in hospital for 3.5 days, and it's a business. You charge $250 for injection of vitamin B1. Right? It's just nuts. But what I'm going to say with that, I'll tell you some negative that I've experienced recently with the healthcare system. But it's a business. So if the healthcare system business, does the patient's interest come? Because when I had an epileptic seizure in England, right, then I might have gone to hospital once. When I went to hospital once, they didn't do all these tests. When I went and to hospital over here, counted the ones, they did 69 tests.
There's a fee with all of them.
And they wasn't required. I've got a problem with my brain, but some of the tests they did, that just... So it's all about how much money they can make on that bill. So that's what my argument. And I think there's negative. Do I prefer capitalism? I think there's negatives with capitalism. And I think
of course.
And I think with capitalism, there's a point which is better for individuals. That I think the more severe capitalism gets, then we get to the point where we are now, where it'll be interesting to hear from Jack, who's a lot younger than you and me, that basically there's a point where capitalism gets to the point which I think where we are now, which is you've got few people, billionaires, like the Bezoses and the guy from Tesla, and all the people out there that are billionaires,
right?
The Koch brothers or whatever they call them, and then they are basically putting money into the political system, right, to affect the politicians. And regardless whether they're Republican or Democrats, they're all in the same deal.
Oh, of course.
All right.
They're all
and then
friends behind the
basically
scenes.
they're not doing the same thing, right? They're doing the same thing, but they're not working for the people. And then you've got, an approach by one of the parties at the moment to restrict voting in the state of Texas. So that's what I'm saying. What's the difference between the communism, because you end up with few people controlling a big pie, and in capitalism, you get to the point when you get so extreme that you get the few people that are pumping money into the political system, affecting the opinions of a lot of the parties.
I understand what you're saying, but the idea of capitalism in itself has little to none to do with that aspect of it. That has become an issue in times present because people are greedy. People are greedy, they want control, and capitalism, the idea itself, is not a bad thing. Business owner,
you can, and I agree with that.
You can make as much money as you want to make.
Agreed.
The problem with it is, me as the billionaire guy make all of this money. I have the lowly citizen A who works for me barely keeping his lights on.
Absolutely.
And that's where you have the issue coming, because there's a plethora of different demographics across that line of folks that aren't making the money that this billionaire is actually making. So the idea is to come in, because it's kind of a slight slide. So socialism is the first step towards communism. So you come in and say, oh, well, they should be making more money. That's the step. You don't go from capitalism to communism. There's got to be a gradual progression on it. So you either start that way and you slide towards it, or you start on communism and you go the opposite direction if the people kind of get involved. But the issue with it is more of the money going into the pockets. That's the most important thing versus the people.
Okay, I have somebody saying that. So in the event there was a result in this country and capitalism communism came in, what do you think would happen? There'd be a civil war.
Yeah, it couldn't just happen.
Okay, I agree. So in that case, there's a civil revolt in the US, all right? And there's a revolt in all the people go, and then there's basically civil war, correct?
Okay.
That's to me, let's just look at it if that was to happen.
If that happened.
If that was to happen, that's what would happen, correct?
Okay.
So January the 6th, what happened?
Not a civil war.
No, but they invaded the capital.
But not a civil war. You got a group of people,
And I agree, and I hope civil war never happens in this country. But the point that I'm trying to say is, on January the 6th, wasn't civil war, thank the Lord, But what we basically have, all right, is a group of people break into the capital, which has never ever been done. And yet we've got one of the parties that's saying, oh, no, that was Antifa. Yet there's criminal indictments going out, all right, saying that they were basically, the conspiracy, which I think is a real problem. We're going to get onto that later on in the podcast. But what I'm trying to say is that in itself, to me, whichever way you go extreme to the left or the right, I think you're getting into a position where events like that will happen.
But I don't disagree. But again, the capitalism is not a left or right issue. Period. Because there's businesses that are run by people that are on the left. There's businesses that are run by people on the right.
Agreed.
It's not a left or right issue.
Agreed. But what I'm saying is, what did you say, right, when you said socialism? You made out socialism. Well, the people control everything, can they? And they.
No. The people they benefit. They benefit. So it's a.
Is that not what capitalism is? No. Or should be? If people have equal votes and equal say in the system, so is that what you're saying? In America, people don't have an equal say?
Yes, people don't, because if I got more money than you, my voice is louder than yours.
Why should you?
I'm not saying that I should, but that's where we live.
Right, I agree. So
that's where we live.
So what's the benefits in that?
Well, the benefit is I can still get to the point to where I can get money and no one else controls it or takes it away and gives it to the guy who doesn't want to work. So this guy that doesn't want to work over here, he just stays at home. He's equal.
That's his problem, correct?
That's his problem, right?
I agree.
But under some of these models, it says that he's entitled to a fair and equitable share of what I make, of what I do.
So what I want to talk about with both systems, let's talk about tax. Do you think it's fair that billionaires don't pay taxes?
Billionaires do pay taxes.
Oh, tell me about it.
They do.
How?
You can't live in this country and not pay any taxes. You do pay taxes. But there are ways, creative ways, how the tax laws are written and how they've been written that you can exploit them to your benefit. I wish I did. So you're not going to win an ally for me about taxes, because I think taxes, for one, they're not utilized the way that I think they should be used, towards putting them back into where it needs to go. I think it lines people's pockets.
I agree with you. To
And
me, it needs to go to community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think they should tax things that, if we're talking about taxes, they should tax things that bring revenue into this country, i.e. drugs. If people want to do drugs, let them do drugs. Tax it, sell it, commerce, let them do their thing.
Agreed.
Put that money back into the system. That can kind of wipe out some of the stuff that we have. So it's not, I guess, a common opinion, but that's kind of my thought with it. The tax thing for me isn't necessarily an issue. I just don't want to be in a position to where I make money and this guy and I go to work, this guy who does not work, does not want to work, gets the same benefit, gets the same treatment as I would.
And I don't either. To me, that makes no sense at all.
I'm not with that at all.
Right. I mean, I'm not into the communism thing. All I'm saying is, are there any benefits in that system or lessons that we can learn from that system?
I think the benefit
is. You see, I think the socialism thing is sort of in between.
It is.
And I'm going to give you what I think is, in the UK, you can have your own business. Okay.
But I hear a but.
Well,
come on.
It's harder for the corporations to avoid the taxes. Mm-hmm. Very little loopholes. But I think what happens over here, I think a lot of the wealthy people buy the politician.
Oh yeah.
And manipulate the tax system. Absolutely. So they're not paying taxes. And a typical example of that is my son Jack. All right. I know people can see. He's at the. Need to put a camera on him so he can see it. All right. But he earns, well, I don't know. What did you earn, Jack, that one year they're trying to tax you and we're appealing all 14K. How much was your tax bill?
That's ridiculous.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. 14K and getting taxed 3,700.
That's just nuts.
That is nuts.
But because I own a business, all right, I generate in gross sales, okay, I don't mind telling people $5 million.
Right.
Okay. I don't get to keep a lot of that. All right.
Right.
I don't make much money net, I'll be honest with you, and I don't fake
Sure.
my taxes. I really don't. I don't do any of that because I really want to be fair and I want to give something to society. And then, I think net, I did, to be honest with you, probably I did 50. Okay, I mean that because of the expenses that we have,
Sure.
they're very high, and especially the times that we had with COVID didn't help us at all. But at the same time, when we agree in paying our agents better split than other companies, so we suffer. Plus, we've got our expenses to Century 21. The truth of the matter is, I'm lucky enough to have a wife that has a very good job.
Right.
So I get a tax rebate, and we get a rebate. And that, to me, when you look at that, it's not a fair system.
Yeah, but that's how the code's written. Single person.
But in that case, it needs to be changed.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with that.
It needs to be changed. Now, in a bit, we're going to talk about Texas Workforce Commission, which is something that happened to me recently, and I don't get this thing at all with Texas Workforce, and that we'll talk about it later on. And I do feel that business owners are taxed when we employ people. Okay, there's different ways how we are taxed. Okay, but the truth of the matter is, I agree with that. That we are taxed in some areas, but I think what needs to happen, I think the tax system needs to be sort of more straightforward. In all fairness, I think Mr. Trump sort of helped with that because he.
Oh, look at you giving him a feather in his cap.
No. I give people a fair shake. I do look at what they do. I don't agree with everything he said, but I think to agree to a degree made it easier, but I still don't think it's where we need to be. But with what America pays in tax, or some people pay in tax, and with health insurance, we're one of the most highly taxed. You put the healthcare cost, we're one of the most highly taxed countries that there is out there. If you put them two costs together because of the cost of health insurance. All right. Now, in Europe, it covers basic healthcare, but you've still got to pay that little bit. That gets off the subject. I'm not going to go into that. Okay. But to me, we're getting to a point at the moment in America where we're getting conspiracies. We're getting all of that, which isn't helping the situation. And I agree with people being able to have their own business. And I think that's great that we can do. But I don't think, I think in that case, the tax code needs to be changed. And the billionaires who are affecting the politicians, that's one of the reasons why a lot of the politicians, it's affected what they're going to vote for. And a typical example is the infrastructure.
That part
we need infrastructure.
We don't disagree.
If not, we are going to be left behind. Whether we're a capitalist country or a communist country and such like, high-speed train is something that we need.
Yeah.
We need that.
I think you had asked earlier just kind of some benefits of these I think if I had to grab two that stand out, communism. The people are cared for. I mean, everyone, you pretty much you don't own anything,
right? I agree.
But they're cared for.
Well, I don't know if they're completely cared for.
Well, I mean, to their needs. You're not flourishing on anything,
right?
But you're at least you're not going without.
Right.
And then taxation. There's no taxation. So, I mean, in that aspect,
there is the no taxation.
There's in communism. No, from where? You don't own anything. There's nothing to tax you. It's owned by the government.
So how do they generate their money?
Everything production. The only thing you own is your own production. So everything else, the money, they are the owners of everything. So if the government runs it all in a particular country, then you control it all.
So how do they get their money to
imports, exports, all
no,
around?
No, but how does the individuals get their money to pay for stuff?
Well, you can still work again on your own production. You can still work and get a job. You just don't own anything.
So you limit. Well, no, you've got to be able to do it because people buy houses. I mean,
under communism,
it's
not the same setup like we have here.
That's not true. We have Chinese people and people from Hong Kong that buy properties over here
in a totally communist. So that's so.
They buy properties over here. We manage properties and then we send the funds over.
If they're buying them here, though.
Right, but then how do they get their money to buy the properties over here?
Who? How they get it?
I have somebody that I used to know. I don't. She used to come into the office, and she hadn't been off for a long time. But she was telling me she owns an apartment building in Beijing. She was telling me how much that particular property has gone through the roof. And she didn't know.
As far as value?
Yes, and she didn't know whether to sell it or not. The government didn't own her condo.
She owns the inside the building. Yeah.
But that is still going up in value, and she said the price of that condo, whatever it is, or apartment has gone through the roof.
She'll probably get if she tries to sell that, she'll probably get hit. She won't get as much as she would get if she was selling it over. That she could own some of the government owns everything. Those are the two that I pulled from it. Taxation is low. I mean, or no, zero.
But that you see, another thing with any business, I think a country should be run as a business.
And we got a guy.
No, that's an awful take because with that mindset, you just said Trump is one of the greatest presidents ever.
No, I didn't.
Actually, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
I said he's got his good parts and he's got his bad parts.
So, quite frankly, the business part for me is the only thing that drew me to him. Because you think with a business mind, of course, you're still dealing with the people, though. You can't run it like it's your own business. And I think that's what got him in trouble because he was trying to run it like, he's a CEO of it. When he was going to all these countries in NATO and whatever and tell them, look, man, y'all haven't paid anything.
Yeah, but I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that part.
I do, because if everyone's supposed to pay, you should pay. If you're a part of this organization and you're part of the protection and you're not paying,
I think they should pay something.
You should pay.
I agree with that. But whether that's enough or not, I don't know. I don't know enough about that subject. But and I don't agree with some of his other policies that he had with the immigration thing. Although it's chaos, I don't know how you correct that problem. I mean, that's just chaos. All I'm saying is an immigrant coming in over here, people think it's easy to come in. It's not easy to come in. It's just not. I'm an Olympian, and it took me 12 months to get in.
But does that...
All right. And then, and then basically it was so difficult to get in. And $15,000 later... it's so difficult for me to get in.
But because it's difficult...
My attorney recommended that I come over here, find somebody to marry, and marry them and get in that way. And
good old attorney advice, right?
You're right. And that's part of the problem because the actual system of immigration is terrible. And yet you've got immigrants who are in the military who put up their life for this country and they won't give them citizenship. That's wrong.
I agree with that.
So that's what I'm saying. But I mean, I I think Trump's a racist. I definitely don't like that.
Oh, I disagree, but go ahead.
I think I do think
I think he's a classist for sure, and maybe even a sexist.
But what I'm saying is, I think to a certain degree, I'm not saying completely, country needs to be run as a business. But saying that, what I don't like is in sort of defense to what my statement was, when Trump and Reagan did the same thing, introduced tax cuts, our deficit increased. And all the time, the Republicans are like, well, we don't want to increase that deficit. We don't want to, increase that. And what happened? The deficit increased under Trump. But when tax cuts were there for the wealthy, that doesn't increase. That doesn't make the deficit situation better.
Our deficit increases because our dollar value in the world, we're not backing it with gold bullion like we. That's why they're just printing money. So we just go into the hole. And you could have Mickey Mouse as the president.
But that's even another subject, because some people have the philosophy, and if I agree with that, that the philosophy is that does that really matter anymore?
What the gold back?
The deficit.
Oh, well.
There's some people that say, the deficit doesn't matter. And I don't really understand the economics of that. I'd be interested to get an economics professor on. Get them in as a guest. If
you have a deficit and you're the World Bank, you print more money to cover the deficit.
Right.
They choose not to do it.
Right, and that's why there's some people that
it doesn't.
Because what does it change? Because you never hear about a surplus. You always hear about a deficit, and it's getting larger and larger and larger. And I know we've turned the corner on this.
But if that deficit is going to increase, I'd rather put it infrastructure, so we don't get left behind as a world nation. Everybody turns around and says, America's this and America's that. But I told you.
Well, so if you do it, and again, it's kind of playing devil's advocate. If you do an infrastructure plan for the country, where does your control stop in the states? Because you got governors in all of these states. So are you doing a plan for the country and leaving that power up to the governors to implement and make sure that this plan is run the way that it's supposed to be run? Or are you taxing them with coming up with an infrastructure plan for each individual state? And that's a loaded question. It's not for you to give an answer right here today, but that's kind of where, for me, I think where the challenge goes, because you got your red and your blue states, and will they get on board if that's the case? Unless you come across and with a hammer and say everybody has to do this.
And I agree, but part of the problem is, typical example is what's being passed by a lot of the Republican states. They're limiting voting. They are limiting voting. And a typical example of that is one of my African American friends that I've got, basically, they're a churchgoer, and they said, Vote for Souls, by the way, was the name of that organization, or Souls for Votes. Or what they basically did was, after church, what they would do, they would go and vote as a nation. They could vote for whoever they want to, whether it be Republicans, Democrats, or Mickey Mouse. All right? Well, the hours for voting. Now, should they give identification before they vote? Absolutely, they should. Identification. They should be a registered. Right? They should do that. I think that's important. But with some of the things, that the more people voted this year, right, by voting by mail, right? Technology today, I think, is easily done. Yeah, because we're a Republican state, and the Republicans have done their work, because Texas is Democratic, going Democratic. What they're trying to do is to change the goalpost.
Okay. One can feel that way.
So what I'm trying to say is, if we're such a capitalism society, people have a vote. To me, everybody should get a vote. I don't think it's privileged. I think everybody should get that vote, but yet to have a say in the start. And yet the billionaires, a comment was made earlier on about Jeff Bezos going to space. Who did he thank?
Workers and the clients.
The workers and the clients for him flying to space. Yet people are on the line. There's been complaints about the working conditions of Amazon being after bottles.
Hey, he's a Democrat.
But I have such a good.
He can't be a Democrat. There's no way he can be a Democrat.
He is.
Well, he might say he's a Democrat, but
come on, man, just
I'm
accept
dead serious.
it.
When you're doing them things to them people, then implement what you say.
It's capitalism.
It's not possible.
Yes,
That's my
literally
point.
impossible.
That great point, Jack. That's exactly my point. So what I'm saying is that's exactly it's actually backing up my point, because it gets to a point with capitalism when it goes so far, yet few people controlling, having more of a say in a political system.
Well, in the political system, people need to vote more these Congress and Senate seats and the governor seats versus the presidency, because that's where the rules and the laws and regulations and tax codes and all that crap is changed, and people don't get out and vote in those elections like they should.
But why would I go vote if they're making it harder for me to vote?
Well, that's the thing.
Thank you, Jack.
Get out there to vote against the restrictions that they're trying to put the right people in place, so you won't have these fools trying to limit your opportunity to vote.
That's what they're doing. If they know that something's changing, they're trying to change the goalpost to put the goalpost. The people in that are there at the moment are in there trying to put the rules in, so it's harder for people to vote. Why did they take away voting by mail?
Quite frankly, this voting stuff for me, hey, I get it. I think it's tragic that they're trying to take it, but I think we have bigger issues than this.
But
that we need to deal with.
What I'm trying to say is, you've got them three things which Jack brought up on the screen, okay? Which was basically, I don't want to live in a communist system, but I think people need to be a little bit more open-minded and saying, okay, what are the good things with this?
Nothing.
All right, that the infrastructure is better. It's only a matter of time that they aren't going to be the number one power in the world, because they've got the infrastructure. They're building a road. They're building a road at the moment that's going to take, a railway line or a road, whatever it is, half the way through Europe.
I think that's more on default, though. We just can't get our stuff together. Much like Rome's fall, we can't get on the same page to agree on anything. So they'll become the number one, because we are basically killing ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's my point. Thank you, James, for agreeing with me. And agreeing with
well, there you go. There's a whole boat.
But what I'm saying is, that's why I think we need to be more in the middle. And I think there's a lot of, even the racialists, we'll talk about that later on, the racialism. But and that's where I feel the problem is. I think it's significant, to be perfectly honest, in the US, in relation to everybody. As soon as you mentioned the word socialism, everybody panics.
Because
I think at one time, in all fairness, in the 50s and the 60s, all right, when America was a productive country, when America was a country, I think there was more socialism in that part, and there was more.
You said what year?
The 50s, the 60s.
All right, no. Wait till y'all.
I think it was earlier. Yeah.
So back in the 50s, the United States had like its big boom, right? From all the oil, all the
What
stuff.
year, Jack?
50s.
The 50s, it says.
Tax rate on the top 0.1%, 91.
Oh,
wow.
That backs up my point. That exactly backs up the point that I'm trying to say.
And so over time, gone down, and actually the economy has exponentially increased with technology. So they're getting taxed significantly less.
Exactly backs up my point.
Than now. But yeah, like back when America was becoming great, quote unquote, it was pretty much impossible to be a millionaire. And I don't want to interject when y'all first started, but
Right.
No, this is a good point. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Like the whole thing with capitalism, which it is a beneficial, but everyone's goal in a capitalist society is to get as much money as possible so they can have the freedoms to live a good life. But that's not the goal that Americans have. Americans want to be. And it's like, why do you need to be that rich? You just need to become rich enough to be successful and comfortable.
And be independent and comfortable, right.
But a lot of people want to become millionaires. And I'm a millionaire, like I just said, you have to exploit labor because you can't do it on your own. Well, that's not necessarily true. Nowadays, with a lot of technology, it is possible to be on your own. But for the past 10, 15 years, that hasn't been the case.
Right.
I don't think, at least. But that's just...
Can you pull
think
that
it's
screen
good.
up, Jack? This is the point I was trying to make, because basically, if you're not taxing the rich,
That's what I said, run it like a business. Let's look at it from a business point. If I'm running a business, Century 21 Olympian, I've got two ways to increase my bottom line. I increase the income, all right, which to me is through taxes, because that's how the country generate taxes, by generating income, or I reduce my expenses. So if we're reducing taxes, the income's coming down. Well, in that case, I have to reduce my expenses.
So you can still make the same amount of money.
Right. And that's why this trickle-down effect of BS, and that's what it is, doesn't make sense at all. Well, if the businesses do well, they're going to employ more people. That's only going to work. I'm only going to employ more people if I have a need to employ more people.
They're going to find more efficient ways to do it without
Absolutely, and we're going to talk about that. I do not agree with this 15-hour, all right, this $15-hour, and
that's a good
my
transition.
staff, in my opinion, okay, are great staff. I've got some good people, and I would love to be in a position to pay them $15 more. But unfortunately, the company's not, all right? But with that being said, as a company, all right, if you push that $15 up for an employee per hour, there gets a point where it gets so expensive for that company to employ. I have to do one or two things. I have to let them go,
Right.
or I get technology to basically replace them and do the same job. And I'm a believer that in 20 years' time, I think there's some jobs that are going to completely go. And perhaps that's a good way to interject, into the next point. Cars will be autonomous.
Oh yeah, the industry automation is coming for sure.
Truck drivers, and there's 10 million apparently people that make money, driving cars at the moment, and trucks and everything. There won't be truck drivers. They even reckon it's safer. Cashiers are going to be gone.
They've already started to disappear.
Absolutely.
Remember when they had cashiers on the Beltway?
And right.
Yeah, that we don't have them anymore. They're gone.
And that's unfortunately what you get into, because it's like Amazon at the moment are looking at delivering through drones.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So what worries me is you're going to get people out there that are not working. What are they going to be doing? And everybody said this thing about Andrew Yang. I don't know, Jack's going to have an opinion on this, but in all fairness, I think Andrew Yang had some good ideas, about giving this minimum, amount for people. But then it becomes a problem like we've got now, which is, people are going to say, well, I don't want the job because I'm earning money when I get home.
Exactly.
That's been going on, that goes on at the moment.
Okay, so but good point. I'll just throw this in while we're talking about it. Is of course the jobless claims came out today, and they were down. I mean, they were up 419,000 jobless claims. People are still not going to work. And it's because they're getting this money. They're getting more money sitting at home than they are for going into a job.
Well, I've seen an interesting sign, actually. at a local restaurant just down the street, and it says, come work for us for 3 months and get yourself a bonus. And the companies are paying a bonus just to get.
Oh yeah, sign-on bonuses to come. So they estimated at 350,000. It was 419,000. So
right.
It was more than what they expected. But folks are, you go to some restaurants, they're shorthanded. It's been hit in almost every industry.
Well, we used to breed Old English sheepdogs, right? I can't do it anymore. And we had a puppy go to California, and the lady said there was problems with the dog, so we actually took him back. And of course, we decided to keep him, right? And the people they call them puppy nannies, they fly with the dogs when going from one state to another.
Okay.
And they changed the date 3 dates. We asked the lady, well, why are you changing the date all the time? What's the problem? And they said, well, I'm a flight attendant and I get 3 miles. And this is how flight attendants make extra money. They get free trips. So they transport different things and they do different jobs. Then what they do is they said one of the problems that this particular airline had was the air stewardesses and even the pilots have been out putting the luggage on onto the plane because they can't get the employees to fill these jobs.
Oh yeah,
because they was laid off in COVID, and they were laid off. Now they can't get them back.
Another thing. This is just an opinion. This isn't actual. I feel like over the past decade or so, you have to come in. It's the pay you're going to get. There's no way around it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, coronavirus hits. Government is handing out money
giving it away
like it's lollipops. Everybody is working from home. It's like a complete 180 to what the society is used to or what has been told that we function. And so I don't think this will stay like this forever, but I think it's just people are starting to realize that they have more control than they have perceived to. Like the job I work right now, I'm getting like $17 an hour doing it, and it's like I feel like that's just because I'm able to capitalize on that because other people don't want to. We're having people drop off like flies at that place,
right?
Because they don't want to work. That's not worth it. But I mean, I'll do it for $17 an hour because exactly. No one else is gonna do it. And it's like if that's the mindset y'all are gonna have, I'm gonna take advantage of that. And this is just people because you're not just a left, you're not just a right if you're doing this. I know people who live in $1 million houses that are taking advantage of the them handing out checks. I don't even know what system it goes under, but it'll correct over time because the government is going to stop handing out money. Eventually.
They got to,
and that's when I think the jobs are going to go to the moon, and then that's where you'll see the economy boost.
And just to let everybody know, Jack, what are you doing as another part?
Oh, I bartend.
Oh yeah, and there's money in that for sure.
Yeah.
And kind of to your point, they said airline. I know we was further down the list, but the airline travel is almost back to normal pre-COVID levels. Yeah. But they don't have enough people to work these systems. That's why everybody's loading luggage. Everybody's doing everything in there to try to make it work.
Francis, the person I spoke to regarding flying the puppy back, she was basically saying she's been an air stewardess for 10 years, around there, and she basically said that she's never had to do that. But, airline pilots, they're short of airline pilots.
Right.
They haven't got the airline. A lot of these jobs, they like to keep them part-time so the taxes are reduced. The employment taxes and everything else is reduced. And that's another thing. Them are the taxes that I think should go away. For you to employ somebody, I don't think there should be taxes as an employer for me to pay to employ people. And then as it gets to $15 an hour, if I did that, we're starting a program next month where we've got virtual assistants that are running some programs for us, and they're in the Philippines, and we're paying $5.50 an hour for these. system. If you listen to them, you'd never think, you'd never think they were from the Philippines. And so from my point, who's trying to, to build my business and increase my income,
You find the creative ways.
that's what I'm trying to do.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm trying to, and I don't feel good about that.
Why?
Because I feel that if I'm a good employer, then I'm going to be employing more American people.
Well, the reason I feel like a lot of like very hard Trumpers don't like immigrants, like the people who are super far, like I'm talking live in rural parts.
Extreme,
Yeah.
yeah.
They know that immigrants will outperform them for a lower
Less
cost.
money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why they're
absolutely.
scared of immigrants. Like
But then if capitalism is about competition,
that is competition, but they don't
Right.
want that competition because you can literally get on the phone and call your dude in Singapore or wherever the hell he
and
is
that's
for
the point,
$5
that's
an hour.
exactly the point I'm trying to make. So that way they don't like the competition. So to me, that's not.
But why
true
should you
capitalism.
feel bad about that?
Yeah,
You,
that's-
as a business owner, why should you feel bad about that?
Because I feel I should be doing more for society and
You're-
putting more in
Well, then don't
making
do it.
America
Well, here,
strong.
you should have this outlook. Think about how much money that is for those people overseas. That's life. That
Exactly.
is life, and you're paying them dollars. That is
Because they're
life-changing
human
money.
too.
That is
No, I
literal
agree.
life-changing money.
I agree with that. But what I don't agree with is recently one of my because a lot of I've got full-time. Obviously, I've got full-time employees, but then I've got part-time.
Mm-hmm.
My part-time employees that work for me part-time, they go and get other jobs. All right. So I have to pay employment taxes on them people. I would rather pay them people more per hour so the people are benefiting from that and not pay these employment taxes. In Europe, if I was to employ somebody, I don't pay employment taxes as an employer.
It's not employee tax. It's what is it? It's something else.
Yeah,
you
no,
pay.
it's called income tax.
Okay.
And you pay it on your profits and everything
Sure.
else, and that's a higher rate from here. But I've still got healthcare costs, but there's basic healthcare that's covered. I do think that healthcare is a right, but the truth of the matter is with that is I would rather put that money, because I think that would help companies more than anything else employ people. But this trickle down effect, I think, is nonsense.
Oh yeah.
Because if I haven't got a need to employ somebody, then I'm not going to employ them. All I'm doing is putting money, if I was a billionaire, I'm putting money in my own pocket because I've got technology that's doing that, taking away the jobs. But recently what happened was one of my employees had 2 part-time jobs.
Okay.
Texas Workforce Commission, what happened was the contract for the other company came to an end. So my employee decided, and this happened in COVID multiple times, one of my part-time employees who lost a job with another company, all right, filed for unemployment taxes because she was basically fired from the other job, okay? And she had a loss of income through that. And apparently you can claim for that, which I think is nonsense. All right? Because you've got another job, well,
Right.
whether it be part-time or otherwise. So she did that, but they came at me for her. She got $31 a month extra, which doesn't cover for her loss of income. And yet me as an employee, me as an employer, I get a chargeback of $1,800.
For the month.
I didn't lay her off. I was trying to do the good thing with keep her through COVID and everything else because there's a need for us to do stuff, to get stuff done, and yet I get penalised. And is that a nonsense? And then to get a reply from the Texas Workforce Commission, we called up a week Wednesday, and 7 days later, they managed to return the call.
But they didn't give you the answer you wanted.
Well, they did, but I've got to do all this paperwork. And they explained what a chargeback was and everything else. So all the people that was even put off, that we employed through COVID, that we laid off, and we not laid off, but we basically, because they couldn't work and we wanted them to have a safe environment with COVID, we got chargebacks for it. So we did a PPP, got some help, and we get penalised for it. There's no sense in that.
The employment taxes are ridiculous.
So am I motivated as an employer to employ people?
No.
And then over time, as we get more automation, and there's some jobs that I really think we're not going to get in the future, like you said, cashiers. You've only got to look at Sam's Club. I refuse to go through that self-checkout. All right, I refuse.
So I'm completely guilty with Sam's Club because I use the mobile app where I scan my stuff and I walk out of the door. I don't talk to anybody when I go into Sam's. So I like the convenience of it.
Nobody blames you.
Hey, I look at the people in line. I'm like, why are y'all waiting in line? What is wrong with you?
Because they don't know what an app is.
They don't.
That's the answer.
It's crazy. I never go to through the line in Sam's. I scan my stuff.
Yeah, but I went there the other day to Sam's, and the line to check out was so long.
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It is because they
what happened to Great American Customer Service?
Because everybody's sitting at home getting unemployment. They're not at work. They only have.
Oh no, there was plenty of lines.
Well,
there was plenty of things. I mean, there was a long line. I agree.
I say get the mobile app.
But a lot of people there was doing nothing but going through the self-checkout. There was self-checkout. People couldn't get through the self-checkout. Out of all them self-checkouts, 3 of them wasn't working.
Yeah, folks don't know how to use those things.
I guess on the flip side, you could say they just use the app. 'Cause I believe you can schedule like your pickup time, right?
You can do curbside,
so
pickup.
With that, and this goes for the same at my work too. It actually helps the workers out. Because they have a schedule of when you're picking it up. They have time. There's a certain time limit that you have to get everything together. Whereas you just show up at Sam's Club and you get your stuff and you check out. They can't measure or prepare for that. Because like when I'm bartending, it can be empty and then all of a sudden 20 people will decide to show up at the same time. Right. Whereas if you have like call-in orders or app orders, you can prepare it. You know they're coming in, so I can set aside time for you to come in, as opposed to let's just show up and get what we want right now, and then everybody leave, and it's all on the worker to figure out the in-between.
Oh, I got you. I take that.
So I think as society adapts to technology, because they have not, American society has not adapted to technology. Businesses like Sam's Club apps and stuff will be very, very supportive to customer.
I tell you what, I don't know what they're waiting on, but as soon as Costco gets one,
it's over.
Oh, it's done. That's the only one. I go to the line, I get in line. It doesn't take long to get out, but man, when Costco comes out with a mobile app, it's a wrap, sir. Yeah.
Because I remember you telling me a couple months ago, you went into a store. You were looking for something, couldn't find it. You had to go to the cashier, whatever. The cashier didn't know where it was. You're running around doing
absolutely.
The app, that's not your problem. You just pay. They do it for you. You pick it up, and you're out of there in 5 minutes. You have a whole grocery cart.
But that's the success of Amazon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's the easiness of the whole thing.
I ordered a lamp for my office yesterday. It'll be here today.
Yeah.
That was the success of Amazon.
And my friend who lives in Dallas, he gets same day delivery.
Some of my stuff comes same day because of the center that they have down by my house.
Yeah.
But yeah, depending on what time you order it,
you can get it that day.
Somebody told me the other day that Amazon's opening a place in League City.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're
opening a warehouse.
There's like 4 or 5 of them in the city. It's crazy. They're like compounds. They're popping up everywhere.
And it's impressive because when I was in high school, it was never work for McDonald's. You don't want to work for McDonald's, right? Now, I bet in high school they're saying you don't want to work for Amazon. At least Amazon's paying $15-something an hour. I mean, granted to what you were saying earlier, they're
making you pee your pants if you.
Yeah, and it's funny because the manager at my work works for Amazon. The lady's just freaking crazy, and she's very anecdotal, and she says, because she states that she is the one who schedules the delivery routes, which I think is BS.
The one?
She's, well, for like her group of drivers, which she said is like 5 to 10 of them. It's like, none of my drivers pee in bottles. It's literally impossible for Amazon workers to pee in bottles.
Okay, she's saying that, taking that from 10 people?
From 10 people. And I'm I'm like, you know, there's literally like reports, like Amazon filed reports internally where people are doing this. She's like, nope, it doesn't happen. It literally doesn't happen. I'm like, all right, I'm not even going to discuss this with you because you're brain dead. But
obviously, if you're taking that from your small little world of 10 people.
Well, at least she's dedicated to a company.
Yeah, I'm glad she's dedicated to a company that doesn't value her time. It's
Right.
awesome. Good for her.
Oh, man. Okay. So, you talked about social healthcare already. Vaccine passports, you were talking about that a little bit, huh? You got to get something if you go over there to...
Yeah, well, my mum's had 2 strokes in a month. So, you know, she's got dementia. She's 84 years old. Goes into hospital. And we actually booked the flight last night because of a different problem. And we looked at got to do a rapid COVID test, 72 hours. Got to get that documented. Going from Amsterdam.
Okay.
And then transfer in Amsterdam, and that takes us to Birmingham. And then we use the same test, right, which takes us then into England. Okay. Now we've got the vaccine. We've been vaccinated.
So you got to do that even with a vaccination?
Yep. Got to do that.
That's stupid.
And then when we come back, it's even harder because we've got to do another rapid COVID test. We've got to find somewhere in Birmingham. We're only there for a week. To do the paperwork to sell Mum's house.
For you to do it, trust me. It's a money grab.
And then, we've got to do that before we can come back. And it's just, it's so difficult, to be perfectly honest. I'm not very good when it comes to reading stuff. Well, my wife's very good at that, so, she does it.
Let her read.
But I mean, when you look at the requirements, it's so complicated. It's like legal jargon, and some of the stuff they've got, I mean, it's just, and apparently in Europe now, there is a vaccine passport.
If you want to go out to...
So, I mean, although it's sort of, in some ways it makes sense, and otherwise, I mean, it's interesting what people are saying at the moment about COVID. Some people are saying that, it's a controlling drug,
Ever since I got my COVID vaccine, I have not gotten less than 5 bars on my phone on the network. It's just 5G all the time. Yeah.
You think there's some correlation to that?
Yeah.
Man, that's...
But and now the COVID starting to go up again, it's the younger people that are getting it. And that's because what's apparently happened between what they're reckoning is it's a natural thing that as a virus develops, it fights what's the resistance to it. Yeah. And that's why now this Delta vaccine, and they're saying now, do we need a booster? Because what's happening is it's now starting to affect the younger people.
Well, I think it's inevitable for that to happen as it takes its course. It's just, you may not see the amount of deaths from it because they have, the remedies and dealt with it.
But what they are saying is, although people that have been vaccinated have got the COVID vaccine against COVID, that if they catch COVID, it's not as bad, it's not severe as that. But people that aren't vaccinated, I mean, they're struggling, they're losing lungs, they're getting long-term effects. So it's sort of interesting to see what's happening. And that's one thing I do blame Mr. Trump for. I believe he was I think he was putting the dollars before people's health because he didn't want it to affect his numbers. And at that point, I really think that it's pretty stupid, to be perfectly honest, that with the percentage that we had of cases,
per 100,000 people was, the highest in the world.
Well, I will say this, and we don't have to dwell on it long. I think where I feel like he failed is kind of poo-pooing it at first, not taking it serious. And then, of course, he was leaning on Fauci, who was giving information, who's flipped his story, and just say, you know what, even with this guy flipping his story, whatever, let's just be proactive, take precaution, try to make, take care of everybody that was in it, rather than admitting that, okay, maybe I got this wrong. Let's do that.
How did Fauci flip his story?
Well, Fauci was saying, you don't need a mask. You don't need this. In the beginning, he was saying that kind of stuff.
What, if he was vaccinated or?
No, period. This is in the very, very early beginnings, if you go back. But I think Trump just should have stayed the line and then just admitted some fault on handling it differently.
Do you not think that?
From there.
Do you not think that's because perhaps he's taking instructions from his boss?
I think it's because of his ego.
Oh, I don't. I think it was because your boss. I mean, that's the problem that I have with a lot of staff is I tell them, if you don't agree with me, tell me. I know I'm paying you. I know I'm signing your checks.
Well, nobody would tell him anything.
But that's the problem with Trump. How many people did he go through?
Well, that's my thing. It was his ego.
People were scared of. I don't see that's an ego. I think it's a problem with they haven't got.
It's that dude's ego. That's his biggest issue. His ego.
You got to be kidding.
Period.
Especially like. He doubled down too by just blaming China. He was like, "This is all China," and like, it's crazy because you don't.
I do think it's. I do agree. I do think it's China's fault. You don't think
like that matters, but like, I still have people come into the bar to this day, and they'll be like, "I still can't believe China caused this whole COVID thing." And it's like, dude, like you really think that like every Chinese dude, every Asian, not even Chinese, every Asian guy, because when they see an Asian dude,
no, I don't
he's Chinese.
I know, but I don't blame. I don't blame any Asian for this,
and I don't think James does, but I'm saying like when you are in a position where you influence that many people, he is telling a certain demographic that is stupid enough to believe it, and they believe it. Like that's what they think, and that's where
the unfortunate thing.
That's where he dropped.
But the CDC always said wear a mask.
Dr. Fauci said not to wear a mask, and he was the voice in the beginning. When he first said it, you can go back and look up all the videos. He said it. You don't have to. This is not where you got to wear a mask. Blah blah blah. He said it, but then he flipped. He did change his story, and I feel like that's what Trump should have done. He should have just pivoted and said, you know what, we need to be cautious with it, and just kind of save any lives. Now I won. Don't get me wrong.
Do you think the whole COVID thing became a political potato?
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, I think it did. And I think
that's the mistake.
We should have just got on board, and this may be a terrible example, but this is the only one I can think of. When 9/11 happened, we were one country.
Precisely.
It was no red, no blue. It was no Democrat, Republican. We were one United States of America because we lost thousands of people that day, and we came together and supported one another. And it should have been that.
But that's pretty ironic. Go down, and he's wearing a mask.
No, so yeah, you're actually right. It does say Fauci made this comment on an interview with 60 Minutes on March 8th during the early stages of the novel COVID outbreak in the United States.
In the very beginning, he said
a longer extract of the interview is visible. I think.
And when did he change his mind?
It was not long after that, but Trump didn't get on board with it.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
There you
and
go.
Often, there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask, and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some?
That was my point.
So what's he saying the cure was?
You said what the cure?
Yeah, what was he saying the protection?
He wasn't giving a cure. He was just kind of saying, we're getting into this, kind of what Trump was saying in the beginning. He was kind of downplaying it a bit. But then when it started to get severe and people started dying, it's like, okay, maybe it's a little more serious than what we thought it was. And then that's when Fauci pivoted and started saying about wearing the mask, but Trump just never got on board with it. And it's so freaking ironic that he caught it. But nevertheless.
But I'll say, like, in his defense, when he, according to Google, I don't know, actual number was. When he said that, there was only 66 cases. So, I mean, if only 66 people out of 300 million people have it, he's kind of right. You don't need a mask.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Is just, when you did find out that you do need one, just say, hey, man, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's get this mask on. Let's just do it. Let's go ahead and do it. Yeah.
And he did make it. Trump did make a big deal out of making sure, like, he never said he didn't want to give in. He did not want to reverse what he said, man. That's ego. It's just like, bro, just come on, man. Everybody knows you take a poop. Come on, Kim Jong Il. We know you. You're human. Come on, man. There's no way. Anywho. Any hoodle. All right, where we at? Where we at next? Oh, yeah, we were talking about what was it? LA was pushing up. California was pushing up mask mandates. I know in LA specifically, and in Sacramento, there was a place where they were making, you gotta wear masks. Like the cases were increasing, and they're almost going back into lockdown in California. That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. In Europe, in England, they, my mum's sick over there, and the hospitals are on lockdown. And they lifted a lot of the restrictions on COVID because it's a higher rate of vaccinations in the UK than what there is over here. But now they're talking about possibly, because of this Delta variant, about putting them down again. I hope they don't, because that could ruin a lot of things, especially with the increase that's happening. Over here, it could all be pushed back. But yeah, that's and a lot of people said that they thought that. In the winter that the rates were going to go up again. When the winter comes, they thought that COVID was going to increase. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
And I'm surprised that we're seeing them going up now, to be perfectly honest.
Well, you got other different diseases, I guess, that come in with, like the flu and all these other that kind of rolls in during the winter months. So I don't know. Folks are just you're outdoors.
And that brings me to another point. I was thinking this in the week. It's like, why are people so paranoid about getting the COVID vaccine? I mean, the people haven't got the same reasons for not getting the vaccine, but they are okay with the flu shot.
Well, that's not everyone. The reason why is because vaccinations typically take anywhere from 3 to 5 years of research before it's even given to humans, and this was done way shorter.
No, I agree.
So that's the issue with it. I'm not vaccinated, and that's kind of been my precaution as well. I also don't take the flu shot. It's just my personal opinion. I don't do it. I have the flu shot usually for me. That from what I've heard, people that take it, you get sick or you start to feel sick anyway. So I've always kind of just steered away from it.
That's one of the things that comparison I got. Why some people say, well, the COVID vaccine doesn't work. With flu, you can have the flu shot, but you can catch flu.
You can, and COVID.
All right, but when you catch it, it's not as bad.
That's debatable.
And it's not. I mean, it's just not as bad. I mean, I got the flu shot when I went into hospital.
Right.
Once. One of the many things they did to me, when I went into hospital when I had a seizure, and I'm in hospital, and they said, well, you should get the flu shot. Okay, I guess you better do it. So first time I've ever had it in my life. But after that, I caught a cold. But at the same time, I really got over it a lot quicker.
Do you guys know what vaccines are? Like, what is in the vaccine?
It's antibodies.
It's actually right. It's the virus itself to try to help your body recognize this disease so they can build up the immunity against it, essentially.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but it really wasn't as bad, and I have no regrets doing the vaccine at all. One of the things they said about the COVID vaccine was that it can give you neurological problems. Well, I've already got neurological problems.
Well, shoot,
so.
hey.
I had neurological problems since I came out of the canal.
Well, here's the deal.
Brain-
We'll see in 5 years when you guys turn into zombies. We'll see what happens then. But, everybody has their own conspiracy. I'm just never been a one to get a bunch of them. Other than the ones that were required to go to school and all, I just didn't do it. So I just didn't jump on board. I just didn't. But here, now I'm going to throw this out there. This might be a little jab at the younger ones. I know some of in my own circle, people that are...
Your kids?
No, not necessarily my kids. That swear about this vaccination. Get a vaccination, get this, but they won't even wear a freaking condom. And it's like, bro, don't talk to me about a vaccine unless you're strapping it up. I don't want to hear it. You mind your business, I'll mind mine, and we just kind of go from there.
Hey, but also, a condom, right, doesn't protect you from pregnancy, doesn't protect you from STDs.
It doesn't, but it makes the chances. It reduces the chances.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. That goes to your point.
Right.
That's exactly your.
But they won't even consider putting one on because it don't feel the same. Oh, that's just always my argument to the younger ones. I say, hey, but do you wear condoms? Well, I'm not wearing one.
What
now.
are you, vaccinated?
No.
Well, there you go. So that in itself is
If you're still eating McDonald's, don't worry about what's in the
Hey, man, you're right about that. You're right about that. Any fast food at this point, shoot.
And I want to move on to Facebook versus social media world.
Okay, so Facebook has started this $1 billion giveaway because they're trying to win creators to come back to the platform. And one, Jack, you know this guy, Logan Paul. He was on Facebook, and then he transitioned to YouTube because there was no money really to be made on Facebook. So they're, as I understand it, they're putting this whole giveaway. They're trying to compete with some of the other ones, TikTok and YouTube and others, to try to get creators to come back because there's really been no revenue.
A Zuckbook.
100% subscription money deal turns. He's trying to do it. He's trying to give money to get people to come back.
And there's this is so funny because back I don't even know how long it was at this point, but so Twitch.tv is like the biggest live streaming platform by live viewers. YouTube has the most people on it watching, not live, but just
okay,
period.
just watching. Gotcha.
The difference between live viewership and then just viewership in general. But the reason we do this right now is because the live segment of the internet is going to be the next big thing. So that's why I got you guys to do live streaming. Now, I got this from back. There's these two guys called Shroud and
Shroud, a little Canadian guy.
yeah, they got paid $20 to $30 million a year just to stream onto a different website. Now, no, it doesn't change. Like if we go to a different job, we're in a different office, yada yada yada.
Right.
These guys just put a different code into their computer and they're streaming to a different website, and they got an extra 20, 30 racks, 30 million racks.
Oh my word!
And so that started a whole hype around this whole live streaming thing, and that's why Facebook is starting to do this as well, because they know that people are starting to veer away from the website. So what is happening is they're trying to get people to come back, like you said, by giving them more money. But I think you're at the point now.
Point of no return.
Money doesn't do anything.
Right.
It's all about how you grow your business or your stream, as well as your content, and that's why. Even in my experience, like there's this one chick that pretty much every guy under the
But they're losing people from Facebook because of Mark Zuckerberg's haircut.
So this girl used to stream, and you guys can tell she's a pretty good looking chick, right?
Right.
Facebook paid for her to go over and stream on her website, and she was averaging like 10,000 people per stream. But now on Facebook, she's only getting like 800 or 900.
Really?
So it's not going to work for long. And people are starting to go back to the other website like Twitch and YouTube So I don't think
because they pay on subscriptions on YouTube.
And even on Twitch, they take a 50% cut on your subscription. It's a $5 per person subscription, but they take 50% of it. But some of these top creators are getting like 70,000 subscriptions. So 70 times 5 divided by 2, it's a lot.
It's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Right.
To
be sitting at home in front of your computer.
We were talking about earlier before he came up here that the gambling stuff. So they're making the subscription money. Plus, they're getting paid $1 million a month just to use a certain website to gamble on.
Right.
These guys are making bank, and I don't think the money is an issue at this point.
And that's not even including like your Patreons and all some of these other ones that you can make that revenue on with these people. So I think it's a empty effort. I mean, I think he's got to do something with the money, but I'm not sure it's going to bring him the results that he thinks it'll bring him, what he wants to bring him.
Do you think Facebook's on the way down?
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's like that's just the cycle. People become more. They find out better ways, efficient ways.
Absolutely.
To do things.
I told you it's
I
his
can remember
haircut.
a couple of them. Vine, they used to be around.
Vine, yeah.
Periscope is no longer around.
And you can look at Twitter is just Facebook without the friends. It's
Exactly.
It's just the feed. Vine is TikTok, except they
Exactly.
changed it. And going back to the capitalism versus socialism thing, me and my friends have a joke about how we're in late stage capitalism, where everything you see is the same. It's a little bit updated. Like Apple isn't competing. Apple can make the best phone the world has ever seen.
Right.
But all they do is change. Like they probably have 150 different things that they could do to a phone that would make it the best thing.
They change one thing and
Like
they sell it
they
again.
decide to do a little amount at a time because they don't want to give it all away up front. And that's kind of like what we're seeing with games, with like food. There's not that much innovation now because you innovate so much at a time.
Totally agree. Capitalism, Steve. Capitalism. That's the way to go, sir.
No, I mean,
and cheat the people.
it's failing right now in its current state.
It is failing, and that's the point.
It works to a certain point, but then it's like you have to
backs up my point.
And that's the whole.
Then it starts to fail.
That's
and
the whole problem I have with like conservatism in general. I think there's good ideas to it, but it's like you want to stick to the old rules. Like that is the heart.
You've got to be open to the change.
Like change is what moves people forward.
Absolutely. We still be in the horse and buggy if we didn't change,
exactly.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't think Facebook is gonna get much from that. And in the next 5 years, I think Twitter and Instagram are gonna be the go-getters.
Well, Facebook owns Instagram.
Yeah.
So I mean they'll I guess they'll just kind of.
I guess that'll keep him going.
But that.
I find people using Facebook for messaging.
And to go back to like the whole capitalism thing, not to jump around, but it's like the American dream now isn't to become like you become successful by making something and then getting absorbed by a multi-million-dollar company.
Absolutely.
That is a monopoly. So you basically get your American dream by getting thrown into a monopoly. And
it happens so many times. That's
Facebook, Amazon, like they're all just acquiring multiple businesses that have nothing
Amazon
to do
owns so
with
many companies. You're like, I didn't know Amazon owned that. Yeah, they got them.
Yeah, like the Amazon over at Pearland. Did you know they have a truck share company called it's like Fluid?
Really?
Yeah, so you can like rent trucks out, and I think they do it for or independent contractors on the day job who are running deliveries for them, but aren't on payroll. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It's like there's a lot of videos about how Amazon has done that, but that's how he got a lot of his money. Is a lot of his workers aren't employees; they're independent contractors, so he doesn't have to cover them.
They don't have to pay employment taxes that way.
Yeah. So.
And that's one of the reasons why I think the money's not going in people's pockets.
Well, shoot. Well, while we're on Amazon, how about this Joker just flew to space a couple days ago, right? I think it was he was actually in Texas.
Yeah.
That he took off this ride in
The
West
exciting
Texas.
thing of this is not him flying into space, but the craft that he went in is reusable.
Well,
What's his name?
most of the ships are reusable.
The new ones now
Yeah.
are. I mean, that was the problem with
Yeah.
the shuttle. It was so expensive, and because nothing was, the craft was reusable. But before that, I mean,
if you can recover it.
space was so expensive. It was like, after that, it's gone, it's burnt up. But I personally like. Is it the one that Elon Musk had when as it lands, them legs come out? That was so cool to see that.
I think so. That lady Wally Funk, I think they were saying she was gonna be the oldest person to travel into space.
Yeah.
She gave some like lukewarm review about the. Like,
And,
it was okay.
and there's a lot of people that have criticised Bezos about going to space. Well, he could have put that money into programs and da da da. I think it's his choice what he does with it.
Of course, it's his money.
But Neil deGrasse, whatever his name
Degrasse
is.
Tyson.
Oh,
Yeah, he was saying that, it's a little bit like, even though he's going to space, they're developing reusable spacecrafts, and they reckon in time that it'll develop in such a way where the price will come down on having that experience with going to space.
Oh, of course.
And so that's where he sees the benefit of it. I mean, I think the government should be doing more for social programs. But what happens is that he's saying that in time it'll come down, and Neil deGrasse was saying that, at one time he couldn't afford a cell phone because it was so expensive.
Well, that was everybody.
But in time, the prices came down, and the more it was done. So he thinks, there'll be a point where people hopefully will be able to afford, if they've got a job, of course, will be able to go to space.
Yeah, but to go back to your point, you need to look up this guy, Dan Price, because he's actually very notable, because he was the first person he cut his salary from $1 million to give everybody $70K. His minimum wage at his
Oh yeah, I remember
$70K.
that. I remember that.
And all these Fox supporters were saying the stupid socialism won't work, blah 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 blah, this normal stuff. And his business is still intact today. I mean, you guys go look at yourself. But when you said it's his money, he spends whatever he wants. I don't think it's his money. It is his money by definition because it goes into his bank account, I guess. But why does he need to? If you can better 23,000 more people's lives, why wouldn't you?
But that's part of the problem with the system, because he does that for his workers. Now all of a sudden he's a socialist. And that to me.
But if he was actually a Democrat, like James was saying earlier, it wouldn't matter.
Well, it shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter which way he is. He's doing something good for his employees.
Nah, he took $1.7 billion.
That took. Usually go a 10-minute space flight.
No, I agree with that, but at least for there's 23,000 people. But I think it's wrong to criticise somebody because at least he's benefiting, some of the people and paying them 70,000. From that standpoint, I mean, I agree with what you're saying with his net worth. I mean, how the heck can you ever use $1.74 billion?
Okay, so to your point, Jack, I was trying to find the link. I don't know why I have it here. So he gave $100 million.
Yeah. Go on.
To Van Jones and a chef, Jose Andres.
Now, why would you give something away?
Why would you give it away?
What was it again?
He gave $100 million to both Van Jones and the chef, Jose Andres. I think I sent the link to you.
Why?
You did?
You said why?
Yeah.
I know why. Why do you donate stuff to Goodwill?
No, well, just tell me why.
No. Why? When you go to
It's a real
Goodwill,
question.
What was in it for Jeff Bezos?
when you go to Goodwill and you donate stuff, what do you ask for?
A tax write-off?
Because he gave the money, no questions asked. Do with it what you want.
But it's a write-off.
Okay, but you gave it to two people. And we're talking about these 23,000 other folks from this 1.7 billion that he's made.
Yeah.
But you just gave an additional 100 million
To people you don't that aren't even working for your company.
They're not working there, and they're probably Van Jones is a CNN correspondent, so he's in the spotlight. I'm not saying that he's inherently rich, but I don't $100 million. Oh, I just gave that
But that's
away.
what I'm asking you. What's the purpose of what did he say the purpose was?
It was tied to this philanthropic initiative that he has, just a Courage and Civility Award to these guys. So that's just kind of the idea.
Dude, I tripped everyone out today.
I wanna watch
I'm going to do it one more time because you didn't hear me say it, Conrad. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, watch this.
What $1 billion looks like? Okay.
Everyone knows this.
We
You
can
know
watch this all the way through
See
because
it.
this guy is
Ready?
he's actually passed away last
Here
year.
is
so-
$100,000.
Oh, okay.
Here, that it is. There it is. That's a lot of money. That's what we can
100,000.
hope at best to make in a year. You know, doing really fucking well after taxes. That'd be crazy to make in a year, right?
Right.
That's a lot of money. All right. Now we have someone named Amhai who is the top Twitch donator of all time. He has like probably $1 billion, right?
Right.
There are people in the world with $1 billion, regardless. Okay. Anyways, $1 billion, that's a big fucking number. We can see that there's a lot of zeros on top of the 100,000, but we don't really feel it. You don't really feel it until you go like this. Even though it's 10,000 times more, but here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 500,000. Copy paste that. That's $1 million. Okay. Then we have to go 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 million. Let's copy paste that. That's 10 million. Okay. Let's copy paste the 10 million. That's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $100 million. Okay, let's copy paste the 100 million. Okay, that's 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, $1 billion. Okay? And now I'm high and I'm going to donate Soda Pop in $100,000 like this. Yeah.
Ooh,
And
man.
now we're gonna try to find the money that we're missing now. Okay?
See, so when he donates 100 million, that's not even.
It's nothing.
100,000.
That's like me giving you $5.
100,000 or
Well, in this
saw it.
case, he's doing
He's
100,000.
doing it.
But it's kind of hard to feel it.
But
If I put it
Bezos is
somewhere in the
a
middle, you guys probably wouldn't find
billionaire.
it.
Right, right, but that's
You
what I'm
wouldn't find
saying.
it
What
for
was the
sure.
benefit in
Let's
him to do
donate
that?
$2
It's
million
taxes.
to my good friend Enrique.
Yeah.
He could-
Taxes.
Actually,
I mean, he
let's
gets
donate
PR,
this-
quote
let's
unquote.
donate
Absolutely. It was on
$4 million. He
CNN.
could probably live a swell life with $4
I mean,
million.
he doesn't actually want to benefit their life by getting
$100,000.
I mean, I'm sure he does.
$4 million.
It's a lot of money.
It sounds
I actually
good.
do not notice
It
it's
definitely
gone.
sounds good.
I can never find it again. It's really difficult, you know, because it's just lines missing. I'm not going to count my lines. There's so many. Jesus fucking Christ. I could actually, hold on. Let me buy like the most expensive fucking Bugatti or like limited edition Lamborghini for $2 million somehow. And let me just drive it over to like a valet. Let me leave it there. And I'm going to get really drunk and I'm going to just I'm gonna go home with my friend, and I'm just gonna leave the Lambo there, man. I don't even want to pick it up, because you know what? The next day, let's buy another one. Okay, we got another Lambo. It's cool. This one has a nice. I like yellow. You know what? I don't like yellow. I'm gonna buy green. Okay, green Lambo. Okay, no, hold on. Let me just normal price Lambo. Let me buy a normal price Lambo for like 5 of my friends. It's like 300K. Okay, 300K there. 1 friend, 2 friend, 3 friends. Okay, let me buy it for the rest of you. There you go. You guys all have Lambos. Oh wait, I want another Lambo for myself. Okay, there we go. We're chilling. Okay, let me see if I still have any money left. Hold on. Looks like I got a
It's a
little
lot
bit.
of money.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's important to note, like, he doesn't have billions of dollars in his checking account, Bezos,
Right.
but yeah, you get the point. So $100 million when he donates it, that's what a lot of people are saying. Like,
Well, in that case, I think his taxes should go up, to be perfect honest. As I said, there's a lot of loopholes.
well, and donating is one of them. That's the reason he doesn't pay.
Yeah, I
a lot of
agree. I mean,
taxes.
that's what I think is so unfair, and I think it's wrong that so few people have so much influence on the political
They
system,
do. They do.
and I don't think they should have an influence because you've got more money. You shouldn't have more influence, but that doesn't make you a socialist because I think the system's wrong.
Now his wife, on the other hand, different story. I think she's given away like almost 80-90% of her
Yeah.
net worth from the divorce or something crazy. It's definitely more than 50%.
Right.
So that in that instance, I mean, I'm sure she's doing it for the good press too, but at least it looks a little more soulful, I guess, be the way to put it. Legitimate.
So that's capitalism, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
So do you think that's a fair system?
I'm not changing. Yeah.
Do you think that's a fair system?
What, him
The one just-
having money?
Yeah.
Giving away money?
Yeah. 100 grand.
Yeah.
and having it as a tax write-off and not paying no tax. Well, he pays little taxes.
If I can
I'm not
give
saying
him
no
my
taxes. I'm saying
just
little
call me a
taxes.
selfish, greedy, fat guy. That's just me.
And then him as a 23-year-old or whatever it is, he pays.
I don't agree with him paying all those taxes. No way. But
But and it's like also goes
But
down to,
I believe that is going to be the death of capitalism.
oh, that definitely is. But
Yeah.
also like going back to like my taxes, that kind of falls on the accountant as well because he didn't help me out like he should have.
Well, he didn't
Agreed.
explain it to you, but
agree.
And if you're paying someone to file your taxes, like
They should help you.
yeah, definitely. And the thing is, I knew I could write all those things off. It's just I didn't know when he asked for those documents, that's what he wanted with it. So you know what I'm saying? It was just a
Right.
little discrepancy, which costed me almost $3,000.
it's been reduced, by the way, since you do that. I got something from the Irish yesterday,
Yeah.
which I'll go.
Well, I got a bill from the IRS some months back that we owed about $14,000, and I knew it was wrong, but if I would have paid it, which
Yeah.
in my mind I was gonna just write a check to pay it,
Yeah.
but then I was like,
There's
nah,
no way. No
I'm not doing that.
And I think you should be a right to appeal it.
And they owed me money.
But even then, with the appeal after the correction that we did, and we got it down to, I think it's down to $1,600. You know, but I still don't think that's a fair for somebody that earns that amount of money.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that.
I don't, but I really think the fairest way to tax people personally is with a sales tax.
One other example is kind of that to that
The
bill.
the more you spend, because the more you earn.
Right. That million versus billion example I've seen. Someone was asking about, how many seconds is a million? How many days is a million seconds? And I think they calculated it was like 11 and a half days. They said, okay, well, how many days is a billion seconds?
Yeah.
And it was 31 and a half years.
Yeah.
So that's the difference from a million to a billion.
Yeah. I think there's like some statistics out there where it's like you could get paid $100,000 a day since the day Jesus,
Yeah.
and still not be as well. Yeah, that's not the exact thing.
No, I understand.
It's
Yeah. Something
along the
crazy
lines
like
of
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Oh well.
And then with the whole social media thing, do you think that social media should be controlled in relation to what people are allowed to say on social media?
My opinion, I think social media is meant there to be a platform for people to speak their opinion. If you don't like it, don't follow them. Don't look at it. I think once you start to control what people are saying in those platforms, then you become North Korea.
Okay, let me explain something that happened in England recently. We had the Euros, okay, the true football. And what happened was there was some black guys who were in the English team, and they took the penalties and they missed the penalties. The two white guys scored the penalties, and some of the black guys didn't make it. They didn't get the penalties. And there was 3 people that made comments on social media. They were racialist comments. And here's the difference between me. One of the big differences between America and the UK, and why I think the UK has a fairer system. The guys that made the racialist comments, all right, in the UK, were actually fined and arrested within 48 hours. So they can say what they want, but the truth is, the government consider it racist. So what did they do? They arrested them, and they're now, because of the comments they made on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, people invaded the Capitol. We can't even.
Those
do
people are
anything
going to
about
jail too.
Yeah, there's some dude got like a 7-year sentence.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Honestly,
you've got all that proof.
I don't agree with that.
Why does it? What, being arrested?
What those guys going to jail? I don't.
Do you think they can walk in and kill police officers?
I said I don't agree with what they said to whoever these guys were that missed these goals. It's
right.
wrong. They're definitely
I
wrong.
thought you were talking about.
Oh, no. But I don't agree that they should have been arrested. Now, Do we catch them on the corner?
Because they're racialists?
If you can,
So you think people can just go on and say things?
I think people should be able to say whatever they want to say.
Even if it's
Even if it's a racist,
yeah,
even
really?
if it's if it's threatening America,
If it's racist, people already say what they want to say. I feel like you say what you want to say, but you deal with the consequences.
but that's what they're doing.
Well, I'm talking about from whoever you saying it, because if I find out where you are, okay, say what you were saying right here when you were at the keyboard.
Yeah, but if
Mr. Warrior.
But if I beat the shit out of you, I'm going to jail, and you're not.
And that might be a test or something that I'm willing to take.
Oh.
But I feel like when you start to censor speech, and you
But
say,
you're not censor speech.
You are. That's what you're doing.
No, you're not. If there's laws out there where it considers something to be
Well, there aren't any
racist,
laws. We're free speech, right?
so,
We're supposed to be free speech. You say what you want to say. That's your First Amendment right. Freedom of speech.
do you think that causes? Didn't that causes unrest within the community?
I think it can. Now, if we want to kind of put and say, if you talk about, like they were saying, Trump was inciting this violence and stuff. You doing that kind of stuff? I don't think that's cool. Hey, so and so, let's go over here and blah blah blah, and you got that kind of influence. Those kinds of things need to be regulated. But
yet you've got the Republican Party that are turning around and saying, "Oh no, this is a political thing." You've even got Republicans turning around and saying, at the time they said they don't agree with it, they don't do it, but now they've changed their tune.
Well, everybody does that. That Republican, Democrat, that doesn't matter to me.
Now they've changed their tune and said, "Oh, they were just exercising their right."
Well, the deal with it is, when we're talking about, if we're just talking about being on social media, because that's what we started with. Being on social media, you should be able to, on your page, put whatever you want to put, and I can choose to follow you or not follow you.
And you think there's no consequences for what you say?
If you're on the platform, because I don't have to go to your page.
But you also don't have to go to that platform.
I don't have to go to that platform.
It's just like a business. Like if I go into a restaurant and just start yelling the N-word, they have the right to remove me.
Kick
from
you
the
up out of
premises.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Well,
I think there's a difference between freedom of speech and but I think you've got to draw the line somewhere with that freedom.
Well, then it's
of
not
speech.
true freedom.
You know,
If you're drawing any line, it's not real true freedom of my speech.
But wouldn't it also not be a freedom on the oppressee? Because you're outright allowing one party to oppress, I guess.
Am I really oppressed by words?
You personally, probably not, but let's say if I was 15, and you were the age you are now, and you come up to me and start saying like racist shit to me, yeah, I'm oppressed.
I guess you could take it in that aspect. You could take it that way, but literally, I'm not really oppressing you. With
do you
my
think
words.
it's right that you should have the speech with your son when he's 13, that when he's stopped with a policeman? I know we was talking this the other day, and you told me that you've been stopped by the police because you're driving in the neighbourhood. Do you think that's do you think you should even have to have that conversation with your kid when he's 13, and yet he's never had that conversation with me?
Well, we live in different worlds.
That's to say.
You guys are not going to.
But that's what I'm saying.
You're not going to experience what I
right. So
experience
should
as a
you?
black man.
So
but again, we're not talking about the same thing.
well, we are. Well, no, we are
talked about
because
social media.
because the point that I'm trying to say is, should you even have to have that conversation? Because that's what's going on in social media.
Well, you got.
I agree with you saying you can unlike somebody because of something, but the truth of the matter is, should you, even have to have that? I think it's wrong that. I mean, I'm the white guy. It seems pretty ironic. I'm the white guy,
I have to have that
and you're
conversation.
the
I absolutely
the
have to
African American
have that
guy on this. It
conversation
seems
with-
back to front.
Yeah. I got to have that conversation with my kids because that's where we live. That's real. That's reality. Those circumstances can take place and do take place. So I have to prepare them both actually, for what could happen to them. But somebody on social media that said, "Hey, Dad, this guy was on Facebook and he said blah blah blah." Okay, well,
By
not that
American
fool.
law, is it outlawed that you can't use the N-word? Is it considered?
It's not outlawed, but you will feel the consequences if you do. Like
From
that dude last week that had the outrage. He was, and they got all around his house. He said, "This is what we do as young people."
But if they say there's consequences, doesn't accountability come with that?
It all does. All I'm saying, Steve, and I'm not telling you.
But that's what I'm saying. With over here, there doesn't seem to be any accountability.
Oh, there isn't. There isn't any accountability when it comes to that. It's when it comes to the law. Now, certain groups, there's some accountability. They just passed an Asian American hate speech law. They just passed that. Juneteenth. We got a holiday of that, but it's having an actual law that considers it a hate crime against certain things, against black people specifically, that hasn't really been legislated yet. So that part, I don't disagree with any of that. I'm talking specifically on
what's
speech.
the point in even having that if there's no accountability with what you just said?
Well, if you do have that, then you would hope that there would be some accountability if you have that law in place.
Personally, I don't see why you should have to have. I don't think why you should have to have that law if you want to, because I think people should be responsible enough.
Oh, people suck
to understand what you're saying. And you know what? And if you screw up, then you should say, you know what?
Absolutely.
I was wrong.
Did our neighbors do that?
No.
Nope.
That's my point.
And just to know everybody what he's talking about is I moved into a neighbourhood. He's a little 5-year-old kid sitting in the truck, and one of my neighbours came up just to
I don't
make.
know how old I was, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and he ran up to me and said, "Oh, are you moving into the house?" He said, "Oh, I'm so glad a white guy's moving into the house, and there's no ends, and there's no."
But that's what I'm saying. It's like when you found out he died and you got him to sign his card. I'm not signing that fucking card. I'd rather piss on your grave. I would literally rather take a shit on your grave.
Those people.
Well, I didn't do a card.
They deserve a special place in where, because
I never ever wanted much to do with him at that point. But the point of the matter is, he didn't realise I was married to an Asian. I bet he was disappointed when he seen that.
But he wouldn't be happy that I own an AR-15 and a couple of handguns.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why I think there can be, freedom of speech on Facebook and social media in general. But if it goes too far, I do think the government should step in. And I do think that because people should be responsible for what they're saying.
you're entitled to it. I think people should be responsible for what they're saying, which is why I'm saying if you got a consequence, you can be a keyboard warrior behind. I get it all the time. In my business, I'm working on a file for somebody, and these are some realtors, they're talking big noise, and I'm like, okay, but then when I show up to the closing, oh, now you're on the hush ministry, you're all nicey and everything.
Instagram pictures.
Yeah. It's like, come on, man, don't be Mr. Tough Guy behind the keyboard, and now that I'm here and in person, don't get this license fooled.
Yeah, and I think the thing here is that you guys actually agree on the issue. It's just that what James is saying is that once you implement a little regulation onto speech, a little becomes a lot.
Exactly.
But then when it becomes too much, then the people should be able to vote, because everybody can vote.
But that doesn't happen because
and that changes the people.
Limited on what you can say.
Yeah.
That's
it won't go backwards.
I don't necessarily agree with him, but like that's what he's saying, and I know a lot of people who think that way, and it's because when you look at China, like if I were to tweet in China that I hate the president, I'm gonna have the police show up to my door in like a matter of like minutes.
No, and I agree with that. But it's a huge problem at the moment, because everybody's saying, well, why should the big technology companies have so much control on society?
But the thing is, they don't actually control society. It's that society is allowing them to control them. And it's like this is, and I hate having to talk about this stuff, because it's like even at work, like nothing against you, but it's like the people who understand the least about like social media always have the loudest,
strongest opinion. They have the loudest voice.
There's this lady at work who literally told me she doesn't know how to look stuff up on YouTube, and she's sitting here. She would fit right in this discussion with us. Like she would have the most to say, and it's like, first of all, try to understand what I'm not saying you do, but it's like, just in general, this is what I notice. A lot of people don't even realize how to function on like Facebook, and they have the most to say about it.
Because it's all anecdotal for them.
Yeah.
It's all based on what their experience is, and never mind the other 7 billion people that are in the world. It happened to you, so it must be true.
Yeah, but that's not the way I feel.
No,
about
it was just saying in general.
Yeah,
most people.
What's that?
It's nothing on. It's not.
No,
No, but I don't
It's just-
feel that way. But I think Facebook has a purpose. That what concerns me is that I really feel there's a lot of the technology companies are really getting to the point where they have too much control over society, and it's not regulated. And I feel that's open for manipulation from outside countries. Like went on, I believe that's what went on in 2016, and it's proven now, with Russia and outside sources and Iran. And I do think that what's going to happen in time is, I don't think it's going to be about missiles, and I don't think it's going to be about
It's not.
things. It's going to be about
That doesn't hurt as bad.
It's going to be the control of that technology, and the only missiles that are going to be out there are the ones shooting the satellites down.
Yeah.
If we ever get to the point of war, that's what's going to happen. I mean, what did they do the other day? The hack that was $70 million.
Yeah, but that's also going towards like the United States, because it's like you guys are spending billions of dollars on rockets and stuff to defend yourself. It's like China has the grip on technology.
Exactly.
That is why China is the powerhouse economy.
So
and
that's exactly what I was saying earlier.
We got our money in the wrong
when I
places.
saying we're getting left behind in so many technology areas.
We're just getting left behind in technology. Period. Government. Well, the Chinese government is innovating technology. The United States depends on the economy to innovate the technology.
Right, and we're putting a lot in the hands of private companies, and they're seeing it from a completely different aspect.
Protect the corporations,
And that unfortunately is, I think it's a downside to where we're going with capitalism. And I really think we just got to pull it back a little bit, to the point where it's a little bit more workable, because the way it's going at the moment, whether we like it or not, America is getting left behind.
far behind.
When you see what's going on that's what I said is, when we go back to the original conversation now with the communism, you've got to look at, I think people, they automatically write off communism because we don't want to be that way. But there's so much that we're getting left behind with, because we need to put more funding into different things to combat it, really. I mean, the whole hacking thing, I'd like to feel at times that we get into perhaps we do get into their systems too. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, cool, man. It's been a good discussion today.
I think it's been a good discussion.
Yeah. So,
and if anybody needs any more information, the links are below. And so we look forward to hearing from people. We hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely.
Every Thursday, 10 a.m., we'll be seeing you. So have a good week, everybody.
All right.
Keep living the dream.